In the dead of winter, the world was a frozen wasteland. The air was thick with a biting cold that seeped into the bones, and a heavy oppressive fog hung low over the ground, shrouding everything in an eerie, smoky mist. The landscape was a desolate expanse of ice and snow, broken only by the twisted skeletal remains of trees and the occasional crumbling building. Through this bleak, frozen hell, a woman ran, her breath coming in ragged gasps that turned to white puffs in the frigid air. She had no idea where she was going, her mind a blur of fear and desperation, but she knew she couldn't stop. Behind her, the guttural moans and shuffling footsteps of the undead echoed, growing louder with every passing second. The zombies were relentless, their decayed, ice-covered bodies moving with a terrifying single-mindedness. The woman risked a glance over her shoulder, and her heart skipped a beat as she saw the horde closing in. Their lifeless eyes locked onto her. Panic surged through her, and she pushed herself harder, her legs burning with the effort. Just when she thought she couldn't go any further, she saw it. A small house surrounded by a tall fence, standing like an oasis in the middle of the frozen wasteland. With renewed hope, the woman sprinted towards the fence. She reached it just as the first of the zombies closed in, their cold, dead hands grasping at her. She scrambled up the fence, her fingers numb and clumsy with cold, but she managed to haul herself over just as the creatures lunged at her feet. For a brief moment, she thought she was safe. She dropped to the ground on the other side of the fence, her breath coming in desperate gasps, and allowed herself a flicker of relief. But that relief was short-lived. The fence, weakened by years of neglect and the relentless assault of the undead, began to creak and groan under the weight of the zombies pressing against it. With a loud, splintering crack, the fence gave way, and the zombies poured through the gap like a flood of death. The woman backed away, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew she couldn't outrun them this time. This was the end. But just as the first zombie reached her, something incredible happened. Two men appeared out of the mist, guns blazing. They moved with precision and skill, cutting down the zombies with brutal efficiency. The woman stared in shock as the men fought off the horde, their faces set in grim determination. One of the men, tall and broad-shouldered with a rugged look, grabbed her arm and pulled her towards the house. "Come on," he shouted, his voice barely audible over the gunfire. The three of them rushed inside, slamming the door shut behind them. But the zombies were relentless, pounding on the walls and windows, their moans filling the air. "We can't stay here." The other man, leaner with sharp eyes, shouted, "They'll break through any minute." The woman, still shaken and trying to catch her breath, noticed a hatch in the floor. Without hesitation, she opened it to reveal a tunnel leading underground. "This way," she said, her voice trembling with urgency. The three of them climbed down into the tunnel, the sounds of the undead growing fainter as they descended into the darkness. The tunnel was cold and damp, but it offered them a chance at survival. They ran through the twisting passage, the woman leading the way. The two men exchanged uncertain glances as they followed her. They had no idea where this tunnel led, but they had no choice but to trust her. After what felt like an eternity, they emerged into a hidden room, a safe house, stocked with supplies and weapons.
It's fenced in, we have whole perimeters.
It's a ball, please. I can work.
I'll get the door.
The woman's companions were already there, their faces a mix of relief and confusion. "Who are they?" one of them asked, eyeing the two men warily. The woman quickly introduced herself and the two men. But when she mentioned the name Joel, the atmosphere in the room shifted. Her companions exchanged nervous glances, their eyes wide with shock. Suddenly, before anyone could react, gunshots rang out. One of the men was hit in the leg, crumpling to the ground with a cry of pain. The other man took a bullet to the head, collapsing in a lifeless heap. The room fell silent, the air thick with tension and the acrid smell of gunpowder. The woman stood frozen in shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The men who had saved her life were now dead, and the ones she thought were her allies had turned into killers in an instant. As she looked at the cold, hard faces of her companions, she realized the harsh truth of this new world. Trust was a luxury no one could afford, and even those who seemed like saviors could just as easily become executioners.